Hello everybody, I'm Matt and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Justice League Unlimited Issue 10 by Mark Waid, Dan Mora, and Tamara Bonvillain. The Time Trapper's mission to save the timeline continues this issue as the future Doomsday is pursued through hypertime by the Absolute Legion, who somehow found him. I've been loving being able to pick up Superman and the Justice League book mostly in the same week and get a two-parter story from them both. One showing us Superman's side of the story and the other showing the Time Trapper's side of the story. I'm glad it's also not being relegated to a backup or a special tie-in either. It's literally the main story of Justice League right now. The Legion attack Trapper as he begins refreshing us on the warped future version of the Legion of Superheroes and how they were corrupted by Darkseid. Thanks to time being shattered and broken, Time Trapper's evolution powers are skewed, meaning he isn't as strong as he should be, which is why the Absolute Mon-El is able to blow right through his chest, wounding him greatly. Trapper has enough power left to teleport away, needing help from the Justice League if he is going to save all of existence. Trapper is blasted into the Watchtower rec room as in the station's control room, Batman wishes to speak with Red Tornado, telling him about the secret meeting with Superman and Wonder Woman, which we saw at the end of the last issue, although we didn't know what exactly it was about, aside from Batman thinking the League was a mistake. Luckily, Mark Waid reveals what it was about, and surprisingly, it was about Airwave and the incident surrounding him. I'm still really liking that Waid is finding a way to bring Airwave into the story and keep his betrayal a hot topic. He's not just kind of waving it away and just kind of moving on. We're actually using that as something to build on and have a struggle for the higher-ups of the League to deal with. It's not just going away because he decided to help the heroes in the third act of We Are Yesterday. The day before, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman have their conversation in the old League HQ in Happy Harbor, with Superman knowing that Airwave wouldn't have betrayed them willingly. He was a unique case, but Batman isn't so sure, as he and Wonder Woman agree that his background made him ripe for corruption. I love Waid getting to write the Trinity in this type of way, where they're, kind of heated under the collar, the tensions are high, they're friends, but they're also, work colleagues, and they've got to put, their professional lives ahead of their friendship, so things are a little heated between these characters, and I like when writers get to do that and kind of test their friendships a little bit, because I think a lot of people are scared of that sort of stuff in comics, where, no, everyone has to be friends with everyone and they can't have any drama between people who were usually friends, as evidenced on Twitter when people saw this entire sequence played out over no context, random panels. Each of the Trinity also have a role in this argument, and I love that Wonder Woman, kind of living up to her name as, a bringer of peace, and someone who doesn't want to get into a battle if they don't have to, is kind of acting as the moderator between Batman and Superman and kind of weighing out both of their pros and cons in their argument. Clark says that Airwave was just a kid who came out of limbo to find the world had moved on without him, and Diana agrees that they didn't prioritize helping him, although they were dealing with the disguised Legion of Doom at the time. Batman is unhappy that Superman and Wonder Woman gave out memberships to pretty much anyone, but Clark defends his actions, citing that he only gave it to heroes, and it's a good thing he did, since Grodd and his Legion would have steamrolled them if they were just the original 7 of them in the Justice League. Bruce refuses to bend, but knows Clark is too trusting, and Superman throws it back at Bruce, citing how he gave Jason Todd a Robin costume. The tension Waid writes here is just so palpable, and it's finally addressing why the team, or in this case Superman, wanted all of these heroes together and the problems that come with it. I also like this is the one thing that I think a lot of people had a problem with, and I don't get why. It's basically stems from the fact that they're upset that Superman and Batman are arguing, even though they can argue and they have argued in the past. I just don't subscribe to the fact that these characters always have to be written, friendly and nice and kind to each other. They can have moments of outbursts and of anger and frustration with each other. In fact, it makes them more human. It makes them more well-rounded, developed characters if they do that. And that is exactly what Mark Waid is doing here. This isn't his first rodeo with any of these characters. He's written these characters for decades, so he knows exactly what buttons to press with these characters to make it work, and it works works perfectly. Wonder Woman proposes that they all calm down and just be more careful with the vetting process in the future, but Batman wants to stop recruitment altogether until they do a deep dive background on all current members. Superman again doesn't think this is a solution since they don't have the right to go into people's private matters. Batman throws the fact that Clark is a journalist right in his face, but before the argument can spiral further, Wonder Woman continues to try and get them to focus on the actual problems. Superman, however, decides to leave, knowing they need to sort this out, but he doesn't want them to do anything until they reconvene. This was such a really great sequence. I love when heroes fight through their words rather than fists, and all of this comes back to the age-old problems Batman and Superman have with each other. Superman's too trusting, Batman isn't trusting enough, and sees everything as a problem, and, the paranoia ends up getting the better of him from time to time. Hell, we've seen this in the past where something very similar has happened, where he had files on all of the League members, detailed files, and they fell into the wrong hands, and it led to stuff like the Tower of Babel. You can also see both sides of the argument as well. Superman shouldn't really have trusted Airwave in the first place, since he's not the first hero to have infiltrated the team, and probably won't be the last either. I'm intrigued to see what Wade's resolution for all of this will be, since I guess it's going to happen after DCKO, since that's coming up very, very soon, and I can't see them squaring this circle anytime soon. I imagine this is going to end with them either disbanding the League or shifting what the League is after DCKO. As Superman heads off to go do everything we've seen recently over in Superman issues 28 and 29, Red Tornado tells Batman in the present that he is there to help Batman in whatever way he can, and we know that Batman is about to betray Clark and Diana and look into all of the heroes against their will. So there's a pattern emerging, as this always ends up being the case with Batman. He doesn't trust others, he lets that paranoia get ahead of him, and it's going to end up ruining everything in some way. Across the Watchtower, the heroes respond to the Time Trapper being blasted into the rec room. Being says that he is dying and Darkseid's Legion are coming. Flash moves in to check the being's wounds, which are rife with Omega energy, but before he can get a closer look, the energy explodes into a bubble around him, quickly turning Wally into an old man. Luckily, Steel pulls him back in time and he reverts back to his normal young self. So I've been waiting to see a writer actually use the concept of Doomsday's evolution power and how dying from something, he becomes immune to that thing, and Wade does a really cool thing here where he turns that power into a defense mechanism for a Time Trapper against those who will get close to him while he is still healing. In this case, it's created this sort of time bubble around him that's kind of growing out of control thanks to the Omega energy. Thanks to this Omega energy and the fact that it's Doomsday, the heroes wonder if they even need to save the being, since he did kill Superman. Black Lightning reminds them that they are heroes and they'll need some backup to deal with this. Over in Markovia, Geoforce tries to save some of his people from a giant sinkhole that is opening up in his city. Luckily, he is aided by the werewolf demon Kadeho, Power Girl, and Captain Atom, who Red Tornado has sent Geoforce's way. As I've said before, this is the type of stuff I've been loving about this series. Cool collections of heroes who you usually really don't see in prominent roles in these books getting together and saving people in the spotlight. And it's always a fun mixture of heroes too. You've got like a veteran hero or like hero that people know like Captain Atom or Power Girl, and then a newer creation like the Werewolf Demon. Captain Atom also makes an appearance in the book after only being on the cover of issue 1, and then he's not seen in the book until right now, so here's hoping he doesn't do what Captain Atom does best and explode, since that could make things difficult for the heroes. The heroes tell Geoforce that the sinkhole that has opened up in his town is actually a fire pit from Apokolips, and more are springing up worldwide. So this is quite an interesting development, and I believe this is the beginning of Darkseid's proper return to Earth, which we'll see in DCKO. And I'm guessing he's trying to turn Earth into Apokolips. This is something he's done before in the past. Or maybe this is something to do with, getting his armies to Earth or something. Wade is making a meal out of all of these threats facing the heroes of Earth right now, and I think the idea is the League, even with its increased roster, is going to be stretched too thin again. Geoforce wants to help his people, but Captain Atom assures him that Mary Marvel and Impulse are evacuating the city, leaving Brion to join the League League in venturing down into the fire pit to find a way to put it out. Back on the Watchtower, Mr. Terrific confronts the mutated Parademon the heroes captured all the way back in issue 2, apologizing for the pain it's feeling, but they cannot risk it getting out. Mr. Terrific demands to know what's going on with the fire pits and the sinister events transpiring all over the world since Darkseid's death, since everything has been related in some way or another. The creature reveals that it has figured out its true purpose, which wasn't to guard the Parademon eggs like it thought it was to be an incubator. So I had completely forgotten about this Parademon they captured, and I'm sure most people did, and I don't know why they didn't check on it sooner. It feels like they just completely forgot it, and it's been almost a full year since that story. I have to wonder if it was like a seed just to be planted and maybe come back eventually like it is now, but it just seems like kind of a waste to not do anything with that story and like kind of develop the Parademon as like a character. I would have liked to have seen, little snippets of like maybe Michael has been visiting him from time to time and building a rapport with it or something to eventually it then gets out and wreaks havoc. In the rec room, Dr. Niles Calder is brought in to assess what's going on with Time Trapper, with Martian Manhunter preparing a telepathic link between Niles and Metamorpho, who is the only being able to get close enough to Time Trapper in order to conduct a surgery to find out what's going wrong with him. Since someone will ask, this is the present day Metamorpho. This isn't the Terrifics era Metamorpho who is still merged with the Bizarro from the past, and speaking of that, that's something we actually haven't come back to yet, that Metamorpho Bizarro combined person that's wandering around the Watchtower somewhere. We got hints that it was still somewhere in the depths of the Watchtower, but we don't know what the hell the deal is with that. Using Rex is also really quite cool here since he can survive literally anything, so I'm intrigued to see if time has any lasting effect on him in any way. Elsewhere in Markovia, the heroes descend into the fire pit with no sight of the bottom yet, with even to Power Girl's telescopic vision, which is being interfered with by the flames. Eventually, they do find the bottom, when suddenly a giant hand comes shooting out of it to try and grab the heroes. Now, this makes me think that this isn't a traditional Apokolips fire pit, and maybe this is some way to bring the Absolute Legion to Earth, like maybe this is the way they brute force their way into Earth. I'm thinking that this hand is actually Colossal Boy, the evil absolute version of him at least, since I can't think of any other giant fist coming out of an Apokolips fire pit and what that could be. Metamorpho meanwhile gets on with the surgery, citing how he's made up of elements and not flesh and blood, and theoretically elements like oxygen and carbon don't age, so he shouldn't either. Niles continues to guide Rex in the surgery via the telepathic link Manhunter set up, telling him to patch up Time Trapper's lungs, which could take a long while to do. Unfortunately, the time bubble that was decaying everything around Time Trapper begins getting bigger, engulfing even more of the Watchtower and rusting it further. Mr. Terrific meanwhile watches in horror as the Parademon explodes open and several smaller ones leap out, attacking Michael as the League in the fire pit are smashed by the fist. Metamorpho is left the only one able to save the Watchtower from Time Trapper's time decay bubble. Now this is a really exciting cliffhanger. The League is in trouble, the world is on the verge of witnessing Darkseid making a comeback, all of the top heroes are busy dealing with their own world-ending problems, and it's just up to Rex Mason to kind of stop all of this. It's Wade using these second-tier characters and making them the most important issue to issue that is great. I love the importance that is being put on Metamorpho of all characters. Justice League issue 11 balanced a lot of new and returning plot lines through the book, and it did so rather well, although we are reaching a critical mass with all of these plots this book can hold. I really like the early conflict with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, something I know loads of people will complain about since their favourite character quote-unquote lost the argument, or they somehow think it's out of character for these people to get emotional. But Wade's grasp on these characters is just fantastic. And seeing them actively talk about things that I've had issues with in this book is a breath of fresh air. I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10.